There's a version of you that must die. Not someday, not next week, today. Right now. You know the one I'm talking about. It's the version of you that wakes up late and hits snooze like the world owes you time. The version that settles for good enough when greatness was calling. That version of you is your biggest enemy. It whispers lies in your ear. You're tired. You're not ready. You can't do it. It's okay to quit. And the more you listen, the more it wins. The more you shrink. The more your potential rots in the graveyard of comfort. But you weren't born for weakness. You weren't built for mediocrity. You were crafted in adversity. And there's a fire in you, buried beneath fear, waiting to be unleashed. The first and most crucial step in transformation is identifying the weak version of yourself, not the person others see, not the one you pretend to be in front of friends, co-workers, or on social media, but the version of you that only you know exists, the version of you that shows up when no one else is watching. This version is subtle, deceptive, and deeply rooted. It hides behind rationalizations. It cloaks itself in comfort, whispers excuses. It wears the mask of just being human. But make no mistake, it's the version of you that's stealing your greatness. The weak version of you doesn't always scream failure. Sometimes it comes dressed as comfort. It says, you've done enough for today, when you know you haven't. It tells you, take a break, you deserve it. Not after hours of hard work, but after minutes of mild effort. It convinces you that you're tired when you're just unmotivated, that it's okay to wait till tomorrow, when you know you're wasting today. This version of you is not evil. It's familiar. It's the habits you've developed over years of choosing the path of least resistance. It's skipping the gym one day, then two, then a week. It's checking your phone first thing in the morning instead of your goals. It's tolerating toxic relationships, settling for less, and pretending that you're fine. Over time, this version of you becomes so ingrained in your identity that you forget it's not who you really are. It's who you've allowed yourself to become. To kill this version, you must first recognize it. That means brutal honesty, no sugarcoating, no blame. You must sit with yourself, ask the hard questions. Where am I being weak? Where am I giving in when I should be pushing forward? Where am I acting like a victim when I should be taking control? This isn't about shame. It's about ownership. You cannot change what you refuse to admit exists. The weak version of you thrives in avoidance. It doesn't want confrontation. It wants you to stay distracted, busy, but not effective. It wants you scrolling, snacking, binge-watching, arguing about things that don't matter. It wants you living in reaction instead of creation. It wants you tired from things that don't fulfill you, so you never have energy for the things that do. But that version fears discipline, because discipline is a mirror. It reflects what you could be if you stop making excuses. It fears progress, because progress requires sacrifice. It fears accountability, because that would force you to rise to your potential. But deep down, you know this version can't go with you to where you want to go. It's dead weight. You can't take it into your future and expect to succeed. You must be left behind. And recognizing this isn't a one-time event. It's a daily battle. Every morning you wake up, you're at war with two versions of yourself. One that wants to rise, and one that wants to stay comfortable. Which one wins depends entirely on what you choose. The more you choose strength over softness, action over apathy, the weaker that old self becomes. But this process begins with awareness. You must study your own patterns like a scientist. Observe yourself without judgment, but with unwavering clarity. When do you tend to give in? What situations trigger the weak self? Is it late at night when discipline fades? Is it after failure when doubt creeps in? Is it around certain people when you start shrinking to fit in? Once you see the weak self clearly, you take away its power. You stop being manipulated by your own habits and start taking control. That's where freedom begins. Not by waiting for life to change, but by calling out the part of you that's been resisting change all along. This version of you might have protected you once. Maybe it was necessary to survive, but survival and success are not the same. The version that helped you cope won't be the one that helps you thrive. So thank it for getting you this far, but tell it the ride ends here. A strong, disciplined, relentless version of you. The one who doesn't settle, who keeps promises to themselves, who builds instead of breaks. That version is ready to take over, but it can't live while the weak one is still in control. So look in the mirror and be honest. Not with shame, not with regret, but with a decision. A decision that the old, weaker self has no place in the life you're about to build. Recognize it, face it, and then make the choice. Today, it die. That's the first step toward everything you want. Every single day that you allow the weaker version of yourself to stay alive, you are paying a price, and that price is heavy. It's not just lost time or missed opportunities. It's the slow, silent erosion of your potential, your dreams, your self-respect. The cost of staying the same is far more dangerous than any discomfort that comes with change. But because the damage isn't always immediate, it's easy to ignore. You don't realize you're bleeding until the wounds become scars you can't hide. People often say things like, I'll start tomorrow. Well, it's not that serious. And they don't understand what they're giving up in that moment. Every time you delay action, every time you choose comfort over commitment, you are choosing to live a life that is less than what you're capable of. And it might feel small, skipping your workout, avoiding a hard conversation, choosing distraction over discipline. But those small decisions are bricks. Over time, they build the prison that traps you in a life you never wanted. The cost isn't just personal either. It ripples out into every area of your life. It affects your relationships, because the weaker version of you tolerates disrespect, avoids vulnerability, and doesn't take ownership. It affects your career, because that version makes excuses, plays small, and avoids risks. It even affects your mental and physical health, because when you keep betraying your own standards, your self-worth deteriorates. People wonder why they're depressed, unmotivated, or constantly anxious. And often the reason is simple. They know they're capable of more, but they're not doing it. That gap between who you are and who you know you could be is one of the heaviest burdens a human being can carry. It leads to quiet desperation. You smile in public, but deep down, you're unfulfilled. Pretend everything's okay, but in the quiet moments, You feel the weight of every banded dream, every broken promise. Every time you knew better and still didn't act. And here's the brutal truth. No one is coming to save you. There is no future version of yourself that suddenly wakes up motivated and successful without the pain of transformation. You don't become the strongest version of yourself by accident. You get there by deciding that the cost of staying the same is too high. You get there by confronting the ugly truth that your comfort zone is a cage. It's padded, it's warm, it feels safe, but it's a cage all the same. And the longer you stay in it, the harder it is to break out. There's a price for growth, absolutely. You have to sacrifice your time, your ego, your excuses. You have to push through resistance, face your fears, and endure setbacks. But that price is nothing compared to the price of regret. You can live with sore muscles. You can live with temporary failures. But can you live with the knowledge that you had one life, one shot, and you wasted it because it was easier to stay the same? The weak version of yourself wants you to believe that safety equals happiness, that avoiding risk means peace, that staying the same is smart because change is hard. But that's a lie. Real peace doesn't come from avoidance. It comes from progress. Real confidence doesn't come from pretending. It comes from building. From knowing you put in the work, faced the demons, showed up even when it was hard. The weak self wants temporary relief. The strong self wants long-term fulfillment. You have to choose which voice you'll listen to. And don't wait for a dramatic moment. Don't wait for rock bottom. The cost of staying the same is being paid in real time. Every hour wasted, every goal delayed, every time you choose Netflix over your next chapter, every time you numb instead of grow, the meter is running. You're not standing still. You're either building something better or allowing what you've built to rot. You were not put here to survive. You were put here to thrive. You were not given gifts, talents, and potential just to live a pretty good life. Deep down, you know what you're capable of. You've seen flashes of it. In your best moments, your clearest thoughts, your deepest dreams. That version of you is waiting, but it won't wait forever. If you truly understood the cost of staying the same, the lost years, the lost confidence, the life you could have lived, you would run from your current comfort like it was fire. Because it is. It's burning your future one excuse at a time. So let this be your wake-up call. Let this be the moment where you decide that staying the same is no longer acceptable. That comfort is a trap. That fear is not your guide. That weakness may have had the mic before, but today you take it back. Your future doesn't begin tomorrow. It begins now. It begins with one truth. You can't afford to stay the same. Discipline's the weapon. It's the only thing that consistently kills the weaker version of you and builds the stronger one. Motivation may get you started, but motivation is a feeling, and feelings are unreliable. They change with the weather, with your mood, with your circumstances. Discipline, on the other hand, is a decision. It's a commitment that stands tall even when every emotion tells you to sit down. Discipline is what separates those who want it from those who get it. It's not flashy. It's not sexy, but it's undefeated. People often say, I just don't feel motivated, as if that's a valid reason not to act. But the truth is, the strongest individuals in the world rarely feel like doing the hard things. They do them anyway. That's discipline. It's choosing your future over your feelings. It's waking up when you said you would, showing up when it's inconvenient, and putting in the work whether you're in the mood or not. Discipline doesn't ask how you feel. It commands you to act. The weak version of yourself hates discipline. It sees it as restriction, as punishment, as suffering. But that's because the weak version thrives on comfort and ease. Discipline is the exact opposite. It demands effort. It demands consistency. It demands sacrifice. But here's the irony. The very thing that feels like suffering in the moment is what ultimately gives you power. Discipline isn't punishment. It's liberation. Imagine, to free you from the chaos of impulse, from the trap of laziness, from the lies you tell yourself to justify staying the same. Discipline is the bridge between who you are and who you want to be. You can have the best goals, the clearest vision, and the strongest desire, but without discipline, none of it matters. It's just wishful thinking. Dreams without discipline are just fantasies. But when you combine vision with daily action, when you back intention with discipline, you start to see results. You start to change. You start to kill the version of yourself that's been holding you back. And the beautiful thing about discipline is that it compounds. The first day, the first week, even the first month, it's hard. You'll fight it. You'll want to quit. But if you stay consistent, if you push through, something begins to shift. You start to respect yourself more. You start to trust yourself. You begin to see results. Maybe small at first, but undeniable. And those results feed your hunger. What once felt like a burden becomes a habit. What once felt like resistance becomes your rhythm. That's how the weak version begins to die. Not in a dramatic moment, but in the daily decision to show up. You kill it with every rep at the gym, every hour of focused work, every early morning you didn't want but took anyway. And with every act of discipline, you're not just doing a task. You're proving to yourself that you are no longer controlled by weakness. You're building someone new, someone sharp, unshakable, powerful. Discipline teaches you that your feelings aren't facts. Just because you feel tired doesn't mean you're dumb. Just because you feel afraid doesn't mean you can't act. Just because something feels hard doesn't mean it isn't worth doing. In fact, it's usually a sign that it is worth doing. Discipline silences the noise in your head. It says, this is what we do, no matter how we feel. You start to realize that most of life is won by those who master the boring, unglamorous, repetitive stuff. Champions aren't made in big moments. They're forged in the invisible, daily grind. They're the ones who wake up when others sleep, who train when others party, who study when others scroll. They have discipline as their weapon. And that's what gives them the edge. Your weaker self is always looking for the easy way out. It loves shortcuts, loopholes, and justification. But discipline doesn't negotiate. Discipline doesn't make excuses. Doesn't care if it's raining and you're tired or if you had a long day. Discipline is brutal in its honesty. And that's why it's powerful, because it forces you to rise above circumstance. And here's the truth most people avoid. Discipline isn't just about success. It's about self-respect. Every time you follow through on your word, even when it's hard, you build integrity. You begin to believe in yourself. That's a kind of power no one can give you and no one can take away, but it only comes through discipline. So if you truly want to kill that weaker version of yourself, don't wait to feel ready. Don't wait to feel inspired. Pick up the weapon, use discipline. Set a standard, hold the line, and when your mind tells you to quit, to rest, to delay, remember this. Every act of discipline is a shovel in the grave of the weak you. The weak version of you runs from pain. It avoids discomfort like it's a curse, treating any form of struggle as something to fear rather than something to face. But the truth is, pain is not the enemy. Discomfort is not your problem. In fact, they are some of the greatest gifts you'll ever receive, because they are the very tools that forge strength, growth, and resilience. The difference between the person you are now and the person you want to become is simple. One avoids pain, the other embraces it. There is no transformation without some level of suffering. Growth hurts, change things. Stepping into a higher version of yourself means leaving behind everything that made you soft, small, and safe. That hurts. It's uncomfortable. It forces you to break patterns, question your identity, and stretch yourself beyond limits you once thought were permanent. But pain, when embraced with the right mindset, becomes a catalyst. It becomes your training ground. Every challenge, setback, and hard moment becomes a rip in the gym of life. And just like muscles grow through resistance, your character grows through challenge. We live in a culture obsessed with comfort, easy food, instant gratification, quick fixes, no waiting, no struggle, and as a result, most people are mentally soft. The moment things get hard, they back down. The moment something hurts, they assume it's a sign to quit. But if you want to become the strongest version of yourself, you have to rewire your relationship with pain. You have to stop seeing it as a signal to retreat and start seeing it as an invitation to rise. Think about it. Every breakthrough you've ever had was preceded by discomfort. Maybe it was the pain of failure, the discomfort of being misunderstood, the fear of stepping out alone. But on the other side of that was growth. Pain always comes before power, always. And the people who are the most powerful in life, the ones who seem unshakable and disciplined and focused, they didn't get there by avoiding pain. They got there by walking through it and using it. But pain teaches you things ease never will. It teaches you what you're made of. It strips away the lies, the fluff, the ego. When you're in pain, there's no pretending. You're raw, real. And if you lean into that instead of running from it, you'll discover a version of yourself that's been buried under layers of comfort and convenience. That version is focused. That version is driven. That version is dangerous in the best way possible because they've made peace with pain. The weak version of you will always try to protect you from hardship. It will say things like, "This isn't worth it," or "You shouldn't have to suffer." But that voice is lying. Not all pain is destructive. Some pain is productive. Some pain is necessary. It's the price you pay to become uncommon, unbreakable, and undeniable. And once you've endured enough of it, something incredible happens. You stop fearing it. You begin to welcome it. Because you realize it's the process that sharpens you. And no, it doesn't mean you seek suffering for the sake of suffering. It means you stop dodging the difficult things that are meant to develop you. You stop numbing yourself with distractions every time things get hard. You stop chasing comfort like it's your God. Instead, you face the hard things head on. knowing that each one is shaping you into the kind of person who doesn't flinch under pressure. Pain builds grit. Discomfort builds courage. Struggle builds strength. And every time you embrace it instead of avoid it, you separate yourself from the crowd. Because most people won't do it. Most people will tap out when it hurts. Most people will retreat the moment life applies pressure. But you push forward. You use that pain as fuel. You let it sharpen your focus, intensify your discipline, and harden your resolve. The truth is, greatness isn't built in ease. It's forged in adversity. The man or woman you admire, the one who seems unstoppable, they became that way because they made a decision to stop avoiding what's hard and to lean into it until it transformed them. So, the next time it hurts, the next time life feels heavy, the path feels uphill, and your mind tells you to quit, you cannot become the strongest version of yourself while surrounding yourself with people who feed your weaknesses. Your environment matters more than you think. The people you let into your space, the conversations you entertain, the energy you allow around you, they all either elevate you or drain you. And the weak version of you thrives in the wrong environment. It loves to stay around people who accept mediocrity, who make excuses, who validate laziness and call it self-care. If you're serious about killing the weak version of yourself, you need to be just as serious about who you allow to influence your mind and spirit. Look closely at the people you spend the most time with. Are they pushing you to level up or pulling you down to stay average? Do they challenge you, hold you accountable, and call you out when you fall short? Or do they make it easy for you to stay the same? Because here's the truth. You will rise or fall to the level of your circle. It doesn't matter how driven you are. If you're constantly surrounded by people who are unmotivated, undisciplined, and unfocused, that energy will rub off on you slowly, subtly, but it will. And it's not always about toxic people doing obvious harm. Sometimes it's about well-meaning people who don't have the same vision, the same fire, the same hunger. You talk about your goals and they say, that's too much. You want to make sacrifices and they say, why are you trying so hard? You try to be disciplined, and they laugh or get uncomfortable. Not because they're bad people, but because your growth reminds them of their stagnation. And instead of rising with you, they pull back. If you're not careful, they'll pull you back too. Your circle should stretch you. It should include people who intimidate you a little because they're ahead of you. People who've walked the path you're trying to walk. People who challenge your excuses, not enable them. People who see the strongest version of you and demand that you live up to it. That kind of circle is rare. But if you don't have it, build it. Find mentors, join communities, consume content that sharpens you. You don't have to settle for the environment you were handed. You can create one that forces you to grow. Isolation can also be necessary. Sometimes, in order to evolve, you have to separate for a season, not out of pride, but out of protection. You have to pull away from distractions and noise so you can hear your own voice again, so you can get clear on what matters and put in the work without the pull of unaligned energy. Solitude isn't loneliness when it's intentional. It's a forge. It's where the strongest versions of people are built. Quietly, consistently, with no applause. Think about any major transformation in nature. It happens in isolation. The caterpillar doesn't become a butterfly in a crowd. It cocoons. The seed doesn't sprout in the open. It breaks in darkness. You don't become who you're meant to be by staying in the same environment that created the weak version of you. You become it by changing the soil, the light, the surroundings, and sometimes that means walking away from people you've known for years. Not because you hate them, but because you love your future more. This isn't about being better than anyone. It's about being better than who you were yesterday. And if people in your life don't support that mission, or worse, sabotage it, it's your responsibility to guard your space. That might mean uncomfortable conversations. It might mean people misunderstand you. It might even mean being alone for a while. But your future is worth it. Your purpose is worth it. The weak version of you will always find comfort in the wrong crowd. The strongest version of you will be drawn to challenge, accountability, and excellence. You have to choose. And the choice will always be easy, but it will be clear. The more you grow, the more misaligned relationships will feel heavy. That's not a sign to stop growing. That's confirmation that you're on the right path. Protect your environment like your future depends on it, because it does. Surround yourself with people who see your fire and help it burn brighter. Walk away from those who try to dim it. Set standards, enforce boundaries, build a circle that makes the weak version of you uncomfortable and the strong version of you feel at home. The final stage of killing the weak version of yourself is perhaps the most powerful. Becoming someone who cannot go back. This isn't just about making a change. It's about making that change permanent. It's about burning the bridge between who you were and who you're becoming so thoroughly that retreat is no longer an option. Because the truth is, as long as going back remains on the table, the weaker version of you will always find a way to survive, but with wakeful moments of doubt, fear, or failure, and then whisper, let's go back to what we know. But when you become someone who has nothing to go back to, transformation becomes inevitable. The weak version of you loves fallback plans. It loves safety nets. It thrives when it knows you're not fully committed. When you leave a door open to the old you just in case. But the strongest version of you understands that real growth requires total commitment, not half measures, not 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Total. You reach that point by choosing to kill off the identity that made mediocrity okay, and then building a new one with no reverse gear. That's how you ensure progress becomes your only path. Burning the ships means making decisions that are irreversible. It means you stop entertaining old habits. You cut off the toxic people who kept you trapped. You delete the distractions. You stop identifying with the version of yourself that played small, made excuses, and lived in fear. And most of all, you stop negotiating with weakness. You don't make deals with it. You destroy it by becoming the kind of person who literally cannot go back to being that soft, scared, undisciplined version of yourself. That kind of change doesn't happen overnight. It's built through action, repetition, and identity shift. At first, the old you will fight. It will try to survive. It will say, this is too much. You don't need to go this hard. Just take a break. But each time you refuse to listen, each time you show up when it's hard, each time you push forward when it's easier to quit, you're building a foundation for a version of yourself that the old you can't touch. Eventually you wake up one day and realize you're not the same. You're not faking it anymore. This new version of you has taken over. Your standards are higher. Your focus is sharper. Your habits are aligned. You don't even recognize the person you used to be. And more importantly, you don't want to. The idea of going back feels foreign, unthinkable. You've raised the floor of your life so high that the old version of you couldn't survive here even if it tried. But to get there, you must cross a line internally, a point of no return. And that's the hardest part for most people. They want the results of transformation without the risk. They want the new life while keeping the old habits on standby. They want to level up, but still keep ties to their old identity, old behaviors, old environment. It doesn't work that way. Transformation demands sacrifice. And that sacrifice often looks like this: letting go completely of who you used to be. But it's not about perfection. It's about direction. You will stumble. You will have off days. But once you've crossed that line, once you've burned those bridges and committed fully, there's no turning back. You'll make your mistakes moving forward, not backward. You'll trip while climbing, not while crawling back to comfort. And here's what's beautiful. The further you go, the more momentum you build. The new habits become your new identity. The old temptations lose their power. The voice of weakness becomes fainter until you can barely hear it. Because this new you doesn't just act different, they are different. It's no longer about trying to be disciplined. You are disciplined. It's no longer about trying to stay focused. You are focused. That's power of becoming someone who cannot go back. This is where true freedom lives. Not in having the option to regress, but in knowing that you won't. Not because you're forcing it, but because you've evolved. The old life doesn't fit you anymore. The old identity doesn't fit. The people, the habits, the excuses. You've outgrown them. So make the decision. Burn the ships. Remove the exit. Become someone who cannot go back. And in doing so, unlock a life that the old you could only dream of. That's how you kill the weaker version. Not just for today, but for good.